Okay, so we're going to look at bystander intervention as a peer education technique. We're going to talk a lot about bystander intervention throughout all of our presentations, so this is a really important topic for you to be able to grasp. So if we look at our outline, we're going to talk about what is a bystander. We're going to talk about barriers to being an active bystander, ambivalence, deciding to intervene, intervening guidelines, and then of course we'll do our module review. So you're welcome to pause after I ask these questions and either, like I've been saying, think about these answers in your head or write them down on a piece of paper. What is a bystander? So I want you to define what a bystander is, what a passive bystander is, and what an active bystander is. The definition of bystander that we use throughout the training program is an observer of a situation or potential situation in which another person may experience harm. When we think of both passive and active bystanders, we need to reflect on the actions of the bystanders in intervening in these situations. Active bystanders would intervene in the situation, whereas passive bystanders would not. We also want to emphasize that being a passive bystander does not make you a bad person. We've all had experiences where we didn't step in to help someone who may have needed it, but this is because we all have barriers or boundaries, and we'll talk about that later. But it doesn't make us bad people, it just makes us human. So, an important note, active bystanders do not risk their own lives to help. If you're considering stepping into a dangerous situation, consider the potential risk to yourself. If someone is experiencing harm, such as a domestic dispute, or maybe there's weapons involved, please consider calling the police or other authorities. Remember, we talked about the peer educator traps, taking on something too big. Please don't take on something too big as a peer educator. Another important rule for active bystanders is to never intervene in a way that would cause a situation to escalate or get worse. We want to think carefully about what we say and how we say it to avoid exacerbating the situation. So, again, you can pause after I ask these questions and think about this in your head or write them down. Think about a time when you were an active bystander. Think about a time that maybe you were a passive bystander. And how does it feel to reflect back on these experiences? If you look back, is there anything that you might do differently? So now we're going to talk about the barriers to being an active bystander. There are many barriers to active bystanding. You likely have thought about some of these already. Maybe there's a negative experience. Sometimes we may have intervened in a similar situation before. Perhaps the reactions from individuals or others around us were negative for intervening. These previous negative experiences may influence whether we decide to intervene again. The next is support. As a potential active bystander, we may not have the support we need to intervene. For example, if you are in a customer service profession and you see a coworker mistreating, if you see a customer mistreating a coworker, we may not feel like we have the employer's support to intervene. There's also personal risk. As we mentioned previously, there may be a risk of harm to us. So this risk could prevent us from wanting to step in. Gender, culture, or social norms. We'll discuss this later in Module 6, but social constructs based on our identities exist in our society. These constructed norms can disempower us maybe at times to feel like we need to step in and intervene. An emotional state, sometimes when we witness an event, we may be triggered thinking back to that peer educator trap, internalizing the issue. If this occurs, we may not be in our best emotional state to help the situation. Peer pressure. Most of the time, we want to do the right thing and intervene in a situation, but peer pressure may prevent us from doing so. It's hard to challenge the norms of our peers, even if we know we should do something. Self-confidence might be a barrier. Sometimes we find it difficult to step in a situation because we lack the confidence to do so. Maybe our identities aren't affecting our ability to react. Maybe we aren't as sure in our skills as we thought. So recognizing our own confidence level is important in our efforts to be an active bystander. We're going to talk a little bit about ambivalence. Much like ambivalence can prevent individuals from wanting to change a behavior, ambivalence can also prevent individuals from responding to bystander activity. There's some researched areas of ambivalence, whether an individual intervenes as an active bystander. So we're going to look at these. The first is being social influence. Sometimes we rely on the actions of others to help us determine if we will act. If others are ignoring a situation, we may also want to fit in and ignore the situation as well. Or we just may see their reactions and we may not react. There's also evaluation apprehension. Sometimes we fear that we will be judged negatively if we act in a situation. We weigh the risk and rewards and determine that the positive impact of being a bystander does not necessarily outweigh risk and negative consequences. Our reputation is important to us, so we decide not to act for fear that our peers will judge us negatively. Diffusion of a responsibility. This one's pretty big. We often shift the responsibilities to others for others to react in a situation, especially if we look at large groups. Individuals often think, well, someone else is bound to step in or respond to this situation. When everyone is thinking that, the result is that no one intervenes. And then the last one is pluralistic ignorance. That occurs when we are in a group and we witness a harmful situation. Most of the people in the group feel uncomfortable and want to intervene, but we each make a mistake of thinking we are the only one who sees this as a problem. We are misidentifying the social norms at play. In turn, it causes us to think that we are the outlier. This leads us to fear social repercussions if we do happen to intervene. So there was a model that was developed in 1970 to identify the steps of deciding to intervene. So the first step is recognizing the problem. This can be difficult to do when environments that are dark or noisy, or when we are intoxicated or otherwise distracted. So it is important for active bystanders to be aware of their surroundings. Step two is to interpret the problem. After we have noticed the problem, we must decide if the problem is an emergency or otherwise in need of intervention. Step three is to take personal responsibility. This is about overcoming the themes of ambivalence that we discussed. Active bystanders challenge those automatic thought processes by taking personal responsibility for intervening. So they challenge those looking for somebody else to step in. They think, well, maybe nobody else is going to step in, so I should step in. Step four is deciding how to assist. This is when we consider our own personal barriers as well as the nature of the problem and then determine how we can intervene safely and effectively. Again, safely being a key word. And then we take action. It's important to note that this process can break down at any one of these five steps, and the end result will be the same. No one intervenes. We also know that these five steps can happen in the blink of an eye or over a longer period of time. We should practice our bystander skills so we can be more confident and swifter in being active bystanders. So here's some intervening guidelines. Jason Katz has developed a set of intervening guidelines for stepping up in a situation. These guidelines can kind of help us mentally prepare ourselves to step into a situation. The first one is being ready. When we get ready, we make sure that we are ready to intervene both mentally and physically. Maybe we have processed what we will do or say, or maybe we've done some breathing exercises. Whatever it takes, we must be ready to intervene to set ourselves up for success. The second is we identify the behavior. When we intervene with someone and we identify the behavior, we focus on calling out someone's actions or words rather than labeling the person. Telling someone, you are a drunk is likely to yield a negative response for them. However, saying that joke makes me uncomfortable, can we talk about it? May go over better. Or you're drinking a little bit too much and it's concerning me. That may be a little bit of a better approach. Appeal to principles. You must assume that most people are good people. Appeal to this instinct and principle for individuals. Often when an individual is causing harm, other things may be going on in their lives that are making them act out. Appeal to the principle as a fellow human and try to be empathetic of their experience without falling into the trap of enabling. Set limits. It can be important to set a line or limit regarding how you will respond to a situation. If someone continues to disregard you or treat you with disrespect, you might not be engaging in a fruitful conversation. Know your limits and stick to them. Find allies. Sometimes there's strength in numbers. Finding allies who believe as you do will make an intervention easier. In addition, recognize that sometimes allies are hard to find, so be ready to be an ally for someone else if it's needed. And be persistent. It's easy to feel disappointed if you don't see immediate changes in someone's behavior. As we've mentioned several times in this course, change is a process. We talked about the stages of change. It's not an event. People may go back and forth between those stages. Even if you don't get an immediate reaction that you prefer, recognize that you still might make an impact that you are aware of and that you will not know about if you are working with a stranger, right? So even kind of planting that seed, I think that's a big piece of being a peer educator. Sometimes we may feel at times that our work is not as meaningful, but if we can plant that seed in people's minds, they may go on to make a change that we never even see. We're going to talk about being an ally in bystander behavior. As we talked about through this module, at some point you'll likely encounter someone trying to be an empowered bystander. It is important that you be an ally for others whenever they are stepping up to confront harmful or hurtful situations. When you are an empowered bystander and an ally to others, you might just inspire those around you to do the same in the future. In addition, part of being an ally is recognizing and rewarding active bystander behavior. Sometimes a simple compliment when someone is an active bystander is enough to help them resolve some of those themes of ambivalence that we talked about earlier. So we're going to watch some bystander intervention videos. I want y'all to think about these questions after each video, and we'll pause after each of them, and I'll remind you of the questions. What would you have intervened? Why or why not? How could you have intervened? What would the end goal of your intervention have been? What would you have done? So we're going to watch some of these.
So, the Olympics are coming up. What should we do to get in the Olympic spirit?
How about a party?
Oh, sounds great. Who doesn't love a good party? Oh, I know. We need a theme.
What if we did like a red, white, and blue theme for Team USA?
I like that.
That's lame. Let's have an international party. We can all dress up like athletes from different countries.
Ooh, I'll be that Chinese diver. He's awesome. And nothing says party like a speed up. Casey, can I use some of your eyeliner? I want that real squinty eye.
Oh, I am totally gonna get 3 friends, and then we can be the Jamaican bobsled team. We're probably gonna need some like dreads and Rasta hats. Oh, or like a sled or something.
I'm just gonna get hammered and carry your surfboard around all night. That way I can be like everybody in Australia.
Right on. This party is going to be the best ever.
Yeah.
So those discussion prompts that we talked about, would you intervene? Why or why not? What would the end goal of your intervention be? What barriers might be present in this scenario? What might a safe and effective way be to intervene? Here's video 2.
I have to be in here somewhere.
Terry, what are you looking for?
My keys. I'm headed out. I have an early morning tomorrow.
Taylor, you're not driving, are you? How much did you drink?
Relax, Mom. I was drinking a lot earlier, but I stopped like an hour ago and I had some pizza and an energy drink. You worry too much, Katie.
You're still not in a state to be able to drive. Why don't you take a ride share?
I don't feel like coming to get my car tomorrow morning. Plus, I think it'll be fine. It's not that far.
No, seriously, I'm not letting you drive like this. If you want, you can crash here on the couch.
Okay. Fine, I'll stay here tonight.
So again, those questions, would you intervene? Why or why not? What would the end goal of your intervention be? What barriers might be present in this scenario? What might a safe and effective way be to intervene? Here's video 3.
Did you guys see the photo that Shannon posted on Instagram? Look at this. I mean, everything is bad in this photo. Her outfit, her hair. I mean, look at the way that she's posing. It's so fake.
They're so mean, it's just a picture.
Oh, I know, but all I'm saying is that I would never post a photo like this. Maybe I should comment something like looking good. How ironic would that be? Everyone knows it's not a great photo of her.
So those questions, Would you intervene? Why or why not? What would the end goal of your intervention be? What barriers might be present in this scenario? What might a safe and effective way be to intervene? Here's video 4. Those questions again. Would you intervene? Why or why not? What would the end goal of your intervention be? What barriers might be present in this scenario? And what might a safe and effective way be to intervene? And our last video.
Oh, hey, Chelsea. How are you?
Oh, hey, I'm doing fine.
It's been so long since I've seen you. Are things going all right?
Yeah, everything's fine. It's just a lot going on, you know, with all the clubs and stuff. It's hard to stay on top of my schoolwork.
Yeah, how's your stats class going?
Oh, I'm getting through it.
I'm sure you'll do great. I should probably get to dinner. Do you want to come with me?
No, I can't. I have to study for this test tomorrow. I really have to pass this test.
Okay. Maybe you want to see a movie with me this weekend?
No, I can't. I have to study this weekend.
Okay. I'll see you later then.
Okay. Oh.
So consider those questions again. Would you intervene? Why or why not? What would the end goal of your intervention be? What barriers might be present in this scenario? What might be a safe and effective way for you to intervene? So now we're going to talk about a little bit of a review. We talked about the difference between an active and a passive bystander. An active bystander is going to be somebody that does intervene. A passive bystander is going to be somebody that does not intervene. However, being a passive bystander, again, does not make somebody a bad person. What are some reasons why someone would not want to intervene? We talked about the ambivalence, the social influence. Sometimes we're looking for the actions of others to determine if we should step in. If people are thinking, no, this isn't a bad situation, I'm not going to jump in, we may not as well. We talked about that evaluation apprehension. We weigh the risk and rewards and determine the positive impact of being a bystander doesn't outweigh the risk and negative consequences. We talked about that diffusion of responsibility, which is huge. We often think, well, somebody else is bound to step in, so I don't need to. And then that pluralistic ignorance. Most people in a group don't want to be uncomfortable and want to intervene, but we each make the mistake of thinking we're the only one who sees this thing that's happening as a problem. When we look at the 5 steps of deciding to intervene, step 1 is to recognize if something is a problem. Step 2 is to interpret the problem. Step 3 is to take personal responsibility. Step 4 is to decide how to assist. And step 5 is to take action. And that concludes Module 5.